Hey guys, so this video, I'm going to go over my thoughts on hypertrophy for naturals. Most of you will know this, some of you will not know this. Hypertrophy is the building of muscle, right? We have two different types of hypertrophy. We have myofibrillar hypertrophy, which everybody should be after, and we have sarcoplasmic hypertrophy. Without going into a deep dive on sarcoplasmic hypertrophy versus myofibrillar hypertrophy, we all should be after myofibrillar hypertrophy. To put it in very basic terms, sarcoplasmic hypertrophy is temporary, myofibrillar hypertrophy is permanent. There are three primary drivers of hypertrophy as per scientific research. These are as follows: muscle damage, metabolite accumulation, and mechanical tension. Different scientists, different coaches, different trainers, they will all have their own opinions on which one of these is the best and or which combination is the best. But first, let's talk about how to achieve each one of these three. Muscle damage is a phenomenon in which the muscle itself, the cells of the muscle, are actually damaged from a training stimulus imposed, okay? The example I will give on this is do a stiff-legged deadlift standing on blocks, right, which increases the range of motion of the stiff-legged deadlift, and force yourself in a slow eccentric fashion to lower that weight, barely touch it down, and then come on up and do that repeatedly with moderate to heavy loads. That's going to incur a lot of muscle damage in the hamstrings. Metabolite accumulation would be the second proposed driver of hypertrophy. What is metabolite accumulation? It is the burning sensation that you feel in a muscle when you're sitting there repping out bicep curls, any exercise, not just bicep curls, but high rep, high rep, high rep. Think of that. Think of that burning feeling like somebody's putting an iron to your muscle. That is metabolite accumulation. Now, mechanical tension, and I will just go ahead and show my cards here immediately, is my primary proposed driver of hypertrophy, right? I believe that muscle damage and metabolite accumulation are actually byproducts of the mechanical tension. What is mechanical tension? It is the phenomenon in which we are trying to move a weight with maximum intent, but the bar or implement or whatever it is, body weight, the velocity of the movement is slow. So intention high, velocity low. Mechanical tension kicks in at that point, okay? So we have something called the effective reps model by Mr. Chris Beardsley. If you guys are familiar with him, he's written a couple of different books. You might agree with him, you might not. I don't really care. I do agree with his effective reps model, though, big time. How does this tie into mechanical tension? Okay. He is proposing that the only reps in a given set that stimulate actual hypertrophy are the last 5. People get this all kinds of confused. So they say, oh, it's just sets of 5 that cause hypertrophy. That's not right. Not at all what he meant, okay? What he meant by that is, let's say we do take a 5-rep max on the bench press. You have to have a partner help you. Okay, I would argue that every single one of those reps is going to be the phenomenon that we just previously discussed, in which we are maximally trying to move that weight. The bar velocity is not very high. Therefore, we are achieving high rates of mechanical tension. Now, let's say that you take a weight that is lighter than your 5-rep max and push it to like 8, 9, 10, 11, whatever. You have a partner there, or you have safety equipment, or you're using a machine, right? You're not going to, pin yourself and kill yourself or anything, but you do take that weight to failure, right? So the first few reps of that set, you're kind of cranking through hard. Now, are those useless for muscle growth? I don't think they are. But are they as useful as reps? Like let's say you got 11 in the set. 8, 9, 10, and 11 were grinder reps, right? You're really cranking as hard as you can on that bar, and the bar is barely moving. Massive amounts of mechanical tension have been achieved there. You tap into all of your available motor units, and I'm not going to dive in deep to that either, but let's keep it in simple layman's terms. You used that muscle. This is the effective reps model. It's not just sets of 5 with your 5 rep max. It's also not saying like, oh, no, nothing else matters, just the last 5 reps of every set. That's not what we're saying here. What the effective reps model is saying, and how I decipher it and use it for myself, is I try to stack up as much volume as possible that fits into that said phenomenon. Intent high, velocity low, i.e. train close to failure. So let's say now we've built a really good program. We write it out a year in advance. We know what we're going to be doing. Just as much effective reps as possible, and we'll start growing as a natural, right? You're not on steroids. You don't get the benefits of the needle. You don't get the benefits of the increased testosterone or anything like that. So things like sleep, things like nutrition become the utmost importance to you if you want to build muscle optimally, right? 8 hours of sleep a night, premium. Is that realistic for everybody? No. Should you try to get that? Yes. Okay. Protein requirements, right? We can argue this and debate it till we're blue in the face. Stick with 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. You're solid. It's not that hard to achieve either, right? Especially when the calories are in a surplus to facilitate building mass anyways. So it should not be that hard to get 150 to 250 grams of protein if we're eating in a calorie surplus, which that moves us on to the idea of calorie surplus. How do we think we're going to go about building muscle when we're stacking up all these effective reps that are causing muscle damage and metabolite accumulation like we just discussed if we're eating in a calorie deficit? You're breaking down tissue and you are not giving it enough calories to rebuild. So you have to eat. In terms of how much to eat during these muscle growth blocks of time for you, that, again, is something that you'll have to play around with. Massive calorie surplus has been shown in a bunch of different scientific studies, which I'm not going to link or show. There's too many other videos showing you all that kind of stuff. Has been shown to make you just put on a bunch of fat weight, basically. So not as much muscle as you think you put on, but yeah, you put on a bunch of fat weight, which then you will have to try to lose during the cut and maintain the muscle that you did. Instead of saying, let's take a 10-year outlook. Let's take a dude in his 20s, for example. Starts lifting weights. Makes the decision that he doesn't want to do steroids like all of his buddies, right? He wants to stay natural. Starts training sensibly, stacking up as many effective reps as possible. He sleeps, right? Should he do 6-month blocks of time in which he consumes like 5,000 plus calories a day? So you got to eat big to be big type thing. Now, probably not. 200 to 300 calories a day surplus with massive amounts of protein is going to keep his body fat relatively low and going to allow him to put on muscle at a very slow and steady rate. So by the time he gets to his early 30s to mid 30s, which is when most of us naturals will end up peaking muscularity wise, he'll be doing pretty damn good. So let's tie all this together. Effective reps. High rates of intent, low velocity, okay, through a good, sensible exercise selection. You've already heard me say it before. Compound movements are king, right? You sleep 8 hours a night. You eat your protein. You don't turn into a fatty because you're consuming 11,000 calories of ice cream a day. You start putting on muscle. Let's take a look at what I deem to be smart programming in a 12-month outlook. Let's assume that we understand what full range of motion in good form means, okay? Okay, let's assume that we understand that. If you don't understand that, I highly recommend you understanding what that means, because that's a huge knob we can turn, right? So let's say full range of motion, ass to grass back squat versus a partial back squat. Let's say, in range lockout bench press versus full range of motion bench press, all that kind of stuff. There is a time and a place for the partials. I do them all the time. I do pin presses, I do lockouts, I do stuff like that. But in terms of somebody who's just solely after growing muscle, full range of motion is very, very, very important. Let's move on. Okay, we know we have our really good compound movements like squat movement pattern, hinge movement pattern, unilateral legs such as step ups, lunges, split squats. We have for the upper body horizontal pushes, horizontal pulls, vertical pushes, vertical pulls. Okay, then we have all the accessory work to follow: tricep extension, bicep curls, lateral raises, trap work. As far as the legs are concerned, leg extensions, hamstring curls, adductor, abductor, calf, all that kind of stuff. We have all of our accessory work as well. When we look at a 12-month outlook, okay, we can take primary compound movements and we can break them up into 3 to 4 month blocks, and we can progressively overload them within that time. What do I mean by this? Let's take the chest, for example. We have all kinds of different presses we could use, or we could do push-ups, or we could do dips, right? Within the framework of what I just said, we could do a 4-month block of nothing but push-ups. We could do a 4-month block of nothing but weighted dips. We could do a 4-month block of nothing but barbell bench press. We could progressively overload these within that 4-month time frame, understanding we're going to be hitting that muscle twice a week. We could do a high rep day and we could do a low rep high weight day. So we could cover all of our bases. How does all of this tie in, and where am I going with this? It is the idea of novel stimuli, okay? This is something I've noticed with clientele. This is something I've noticed with myself to be very, very true and very, very effective for muscle growth. Not just muscle strength, but muscle growth, measurable muscle growth. People looking at you, wow, you've put on muscle. To my clients, to me, all kinds of stuff, right? So let's take the pull-ups, okay? Let's take something like pull-ups versus lat pull-downs. Let's say you did pull-ups for 5-6 years of your life. You've maxed out the pull-up. Your body is used to that now, okay? Let's forget about the pull-up. For at least 4 months, let's go over to the barbell row. Let's progress that. Is it going to be hitting the exact same muscles? Yeah. Is it going to be hitting them a little bit differently? A little bit different, stabilizer muscles, secondary muscles, this kind of stuff? Yes. What happens when you first start a construction job or a manual labor job? You're sore. You're sore as shit because that's a novel stimulus to your body. You're not used to it. What happens after about a month of the wheelbarrows and carrying stuff around and bending over? You're not sore anymore, right? Can you honestly say you're still getting sore from doing the exact same movements over and over and over again? Before you say it, I understand that soreness doesn't mean you're growing, right? But I would argue that you cannot infinitely progress those movements either, right? Or because if that was the case, we'd all be 10,000 pound back squatters by this point. Nobody's there. So take your movements, right? Your compound movements, realize what you can do, what your body can handle as far as frequency. How many times a week do you want to hit these muscles? You understand you have tried and true compound exercises that you can choose from. You understand it's beneficial to put weight on the bar, add reps, progressively overload, okay? Then you also understand the SAID principle. Specific adaptations to impose demands, right? You understand the law of diminishing returns, right? As far as you're going to keep doing the same thing over and over and over. You're going to start to get used to it. It's going to become stale, and you're going to benefit from it less and less and less, okay? Everything tied together now. We sleep 8 hours a night. We take in 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight, right? We do our chest, back, quads, all of our big muscle groups twice a week. We hit our accessories as many times as possible that we can and recover from all of it appropriately. Then we take our idea of novel stimulus and effective reps, and we put all of that together to look something like this. A block in which we prioritize the weighted dip, the barbell back squat, the weighted pull-up, and all of the other accessories. The next block of time, we will prioritize the deadlift, right? The overhead press, the barbell row, and all of the other accessories. The third block of time of 4 months, right? We now prioritize the weighted push-up, the leg press, so on and so forth, right? Progressively overload these types of movements, chart down what you're doing, and then the next time you go to hit these movements in the next block, hopefully you can beat your last PR in these. And all of this, in my opinion, this is my hypothesis as a trainer and a natural who's been doing this a long time, you're going to get the most of what little we get as naturals of muscle growth. Thank you so much for watching.